beautiful, uplifting, heart-filled message of love.
Why is the core of this planet acting so strangely? Greetings, dear ones. I'm Cryon of Magnetic Service. I've just given you one of the most exciting things I can tell you. It's a mystery to most, unless you have studied the work of Cryon. 1989, 35 years ago, I came in with a message. Published in 1993 in Cryon Book 1, and it talked about the magnetics of your planet, the grid, the magnetic grid of your planet. Specifically, I told you something that 35 years before I arrived was actually seen by scientists. The idea that the core of your Earth was actually isolated and moved differently than the rest of your planet. And now you're seeing it. Now you're seeing it because the instruments you are using 70 years later are better and confirming not only is it acting strangely, it's moving completely separately than the other parts of the magma, even perhaps reversing. And here's the excitement. Because when I gave the information in 1993, I told you the following. The magnetics of your planet is going to shift greatly. You got to see it. You got to see it within a few years. When the whales of the planet started beaching themselves, because what you had happen already is the magnetics of the planet, that's where your north points on the compass had changed. And the whales were involved because they used the compass built into them to navigate in order to find the places they go to for that which they eat and the places where they breed. Birds have the same situation, dear ones. All of this was starting to change. Migration is almost exclusively controlled by the animals, birds, and mammals that use a compass built into them to migrate. So when the magnetics started to shift and move and north became someplace else, there was confusion. You saw it. I didn't make this up. Runway numbers all over the planet had to be repainted. That's where the planes land. Because those numbers are compass headings. And when the magnetics started to shift on the planet, they had to be repainted as well. Those numbers. All of this to tell you that it had begun. It began shortly after I told you that magnetics, are you ready for this? And the grid, are you ready for this, is somehow related to human consciousness. Now that's a statement. Laughable at the time, very laughable at the time. What does physics have to do with consciousness? It wasn't that much later that Princeton got involved, including another one, HeartMath, got involved, and by the year 2001 and 2002, it was validated. Consciousness seems to alter the magnetics of the planet. Even randomness was changed by consciousness, which means that consciousness is energy. Now, here's my excitement. Have you ever studied what makes magnetics? Have you ever studied what creates a large magnetic field? Most of you have not. I invite you to take a look. It requires pieces of iron, you might say, or magma, that rotate around each other in ways that would create the magnetic field. This Earth has one. There are other planets that do not. Some do. Mars used to. It does not now. The magnetic field of the planet is for many reasons, and some of them are unsubstantiated. You're not aware of them yet. But the main one that you are aware of, it protects you from cosmic rays and the heliosphere of the sun, which is another magnetic field which blasts toward you called the solar wind. It's a protection layer for you. It protects humanity. And it's going to continue. It's not going away. So do not then listen to the fear mongers that say, we have discovered that there's a core of this planet. It's almost like a steel ball that's enormous, that rotates, and we see that it's rotating differently and oddly, and I'm saying, that's exactly what we told you would happen, and it's happening. And they're noticing. Another science fact, you might say, in the quiver of arrows that I continue called the truth that you will discover when you choose to discover it. Why is this happening? And I will tell you yet again. If the magnetic field of this planet is related to the consciousness of humanity, this grid will shift in preparation for the new consciousness that is happening now during the shift and in the future. The reason I am here, the reason I am in love with humanity is because the shift is here. The indigenous predicted the shift, not Cryon. It has been predicted all over this planet that there would be change right now, and there is. Immense, powerful change in the way humans think. A change that is so great that the kinds of things that are happening right now on the planet, war, will not happen again. And there would be those who listen to this and say, well, that's very nice for you to say that, Cryon, but look, here we are in the shift and it's happening. So I'll tell you yet again why it's happening. This change of consciousness that some of you are seeing, a change that is so obvious in so many ways, it's not your grandfather's world. This change is a metaphor, you might say, of light starting to come onto this planet to replace that which has been a darker kind of consciousness and living for eons. Where human life is not valued at all, where war is so common that it seems like you have to have one every few years in order to survive. That's the kind of consciousness that you've come from. Those of you who have experienced past lives, most of them have involved war of some kind, because it's always been there. Always. And even when some of you got very, very spiritual, they become the spiritual leaders who then took over war. It seems to have been here forever. And here it is again, some of you might say. So what is that? Why is that different? I will tell you why it's different. This is not another world war, dear ones, and yet it could have been. What happened when the first of these two wars broke out? I'll say it again. There was no side taking. There was no east-west kind of siding and arming up and getting ready for another world war. Instead, almost all the nations of the planet rejected it. Some at great expense to their own people, so that it would not happen again. It was like all of those on the world said, no, not this time. We're done with it. How could you? And it doesn't matter who started it, how it was. It's just the fact that it was there at all is odd, isn't it? It is odd. With all that was going on in the world, what if I told you that this was those old consciousness wanting to keep it the way it was? When light starts to occur, those invested in the dark will go the second mile, the third mile, the fourth mile, they say, to keep it the same. It has to do with control. It has to do with the way things were. It has to do with a great amount of money. That's why war exists. You know that. And suddenly the world said, not this time. You may be seeing the last of the wars. The one that is currently in the Middle East, we have told you before, has been predicted even by the ancients, even in the spirituality that some of you have is the great book, the Bible. They said the beginning of the end times would be a war in Israel. Read it again. Some are frightened by it. Some are saying it's right on time. It is the end of an old world. A world of dark energy where people starve and go hungry. A world where wealth is not shared. A world where those don't care necessarily about each other. And now that is starting to shift into a planet where they're starting to look at technology that they've always had, dear ones, that now they realize could feed the earth. A technology that they've always had, by the way, dear ones, to provide electricity for everyone at very, very little or no imprint on the planet that is negative. These things are in the works. These things are happening. They're here now. Meanwhile, there are so many who want to take that light away from you. Do not fear what is happening on the earth when they tell you about this core that is moving. It is right on time. It is what I told you would happen, because the core of this planet, rotating the way it does, is the engine for the magnetic field. Told you it was coming, and here it is. That's exciting. That's for you, all of you. Dear ones, I am Cryon, in love of you, in love with you, in love with you, for good reason. And so it is.
And following that beautiful message from Cryon, that just fills the heart with overflowing feelings of gratitude, love, appreciation, I invite you now to bring your awareness back into your body. And if you've had your eyes closed, I invite you to open your eyes as we move into the next part of our program. And tonight's guest is known personally to us, and we just love him dearly. He's a Canadian medical doctor currently practicing in Ottawa, Canada, but there is so much more to John. Lee first met Dr. John Ryan when he hosted a very large Cryon seminar many, many years ago in his hometown of Ottawa, which, by the way, happens to be the capital of Canada. It was only a few years later that John was contacted by the Syrian Blue-White Collective. Wow.
I am always fascinated by women and men of science, especially those trained to be medical doctors who somehow are brought to places that are normally reserved for the woo-woo. From the very beginning of my experience with esoteric thought, it goes way, way back, and what some call the New Age, I was always told that smart people, especially doctors, and especially those involved in science, would never participate in such unsubstantiated beliefs as you hear today on this program. Yet we have had many doctors of science and medicine on this very show. They don't even blink these days when we ask them how this kind of esoteric thought could go with their standard mainstream training. Their answer is almost always the same. What they have discovered in esoterics and multidimensionality and ideas and their thoughts, it goes perfectly with their desire to heal, to help people. It's just the next level, the next step in their life's purpose and their journey. And what may seem weird and unsubstantiated to the mainstream is just the yet to be discovered for them.
So John Ryan was also the one who sponsored and organised a Return to Lemuria conference in Hawaii. And that's where Cryon gave the beginning of the information of the Lemurian teaching wheel. And yes, John is also from Lemuria. Cryon has even identified his Lemurian name. John has been on this program many times, and actually when I think about it, John was on the premiere episode of Healing Wednesdays. And so I just love that John is our guest on the very first premiere episode of Wednesdays with Cryon. I feel that family connection with John, and in a moment you're going to feel it as well if this is the first time you're meeting John. So John has done other online programs that Lee and I have done as well. John Ryan, MD, is a professor of medicine, and he's also a practitioner of energy and consciousness-based medicine. He's the author of Unity Field Healing, Volume 1, Foundations of Energy, Medicine and Quantum Healing, and he's the founder of Unity Field Healing. It's a new quantum process based on conscious activation of the DNA field to support healing and personal evolution. He channels the Syrian Blue-White Collective, who is supporting Unity Field Healing and humanity's ascension through monthly transmissions and channeled messages.
So, before I bring John to the show and let him give us an encounter with the Syrian Blue-White Collective, I want to let you know just a little bit about who they are. Now, the Syrian Blue-White Collective, a wonderful, wonderful group of ascended light beings who have been supporting humanity through the millennia. They now step forward, representing a conscious channel, represented by a conscious channel, and that would be John, to support humanity through the ascension journey and the quantum integration of, ready, the 24th chromosome pair and the diamond light body. John has told us that tonight they'll share up-to-date information on the awakening of humanity and the rise of the crystalline grid, and provide a short guided meditation to catalyze our collective healing and integration. Dr. John, welcome to our Wednesdays with Cryon program, the first one. Over to you.